In one of the cities, the race begins to come to an end. Everyone is looking forward to whether the hummingbird crew will reach the finish line first or someone else will do it. The current world champion, nicknamed Shark Rocket, wants to look those behind him in the face after setting a new record. However, unexpectedly for the man himself, he is quickly overtaken by another of the participants. The commentator with Trebin draws the crowd's attention to this with surprise. The nameless cyclist rushes forward like a reverse flush, leaving no chance for the favorite. More and more people were paying attention. The speed was so fast that Shark Rocket's clothes turned into a pile of scraps, and the dark horse of the tournament finished with ease. Everyone was stunned when they noticed who this stranger was. An ordinary DoorDash delivery man had overtaken the world's leading champion. However, the hero of the story himself only asked for forgiveness before continuing to pedal further, because the order was still waiting for him. The boy was surprised at how he managed to be on time this time. Next time he wanted to take his work more responsibly. A young man very similar to Itadori is called Yang Hu. He is only 18 years old, but for certain reasons he is forced to provide for himself. Working part-time as a delivery driver required a lot of self-confidence, and he really didn't want to go through the trash again like he had done last month. Next, we are shown a new character. He is still a no-name, but will soon become the nakama of the main character, who together with him will not allow evil creatures into our world. True, let everyone be able to say such a thing, but only a few can actually do this, so the monster's blow sends the young man flying. To finish off the enemy, the monster delivers another blow with its tentacle, and we can only guess whether the young man is alive or whether he was killed by the last attack. The main character intervened in the matter. He decided to save the more modern version of Chun Yu, who, in turn, thanked the elder for his help. As soon as the boy decided to check who saved him, he was surprised to notice that it was an ordinary civilian. It was a mystery how he got there. The monster, clearly not copied from Enigma from Dota, began to growl loudly, making it clear that it would soon continue its attack. To resist such monsters, you need not only great courage but also at least some kind of weapon. There was a magic sword nearby. Unlike Link's Master Sword, this equipment fell into the stone due to the negligence of its previous owner. True, the Monster of Shadows did not plan to leave an ordinary person alive, chasing him on his heels and preparing to kill him at the same moment. Yang Hu's vital energy at that moment increased so much that for a while it became visible even to the naked eye. While a warrior unknown to us warned the main character, ordinary people could not use such items and paid for the mistake with death. True, the guy was clearly not ordinary. So using the heightened Mitsurugi Ryu blade technique, he dealt a strong blow to the monster, although he was in an awkward position. To the surprise of the blonde, he could not believe that something like this could really happen. The strength that the boy showed was extremely cool. The blow inflicted was extremely painful for the demon from the abyss, although due to Yang Hu's lack of skills, the sword flew in the other direction after the blow. This single attack cost the guy almost all his stamina. It's a pity that he didn't have Eichter's buff on him at that moment. Perhaps then he could hold out longer. Before we find out exactly how the battle ended, we are taken back some time to show how the guy got to that place. The unlicensed rider raced so fast that he tore off the winner's ribbon without touching it. The commentator and all the spectators were shocked. They did not expect such a show. As soon as our guy delivered the order, he saw a warning on TV. A woman was talking about how an eclipse would soon begin. The guy was already preparing to greet the hand of God, but then he remembered that this only happens in manga. Yang Hu was very surprised after noticing the beginning of the eclipse. He had never seen it before, so he was not sure. Only what was happening was different from everything he had previously heard about this event. The mysterious event fascinated the young man. He did not even notice the disappearance of other people. The fiery sphere in the sky began to vibrate weakly, and a moment later a yin-yang circle formed on the young man's hand, causing severe suffering. True, there was no time to think about the pain because all the buildings surrounding him began to gradually part. The landscape more and more resembled the view of the city from the anime Tengoku Daimakyu. At that moment, the main character noticed a gray-haired junior high school student who, although he could take the blow, seemed to be gradually beginning to lose. The stranger had already come to terms with the end, and was ready to finally meet St. Peter at the entrance to paradise, but was saved in time by the main character. The warrior asked the young man to run away, because this fight was not for those who are ordinary people, otherwise the brave guy could die. He tried to convince the main character that the lives of civilians were more important than his own, but the young man had long been selfish, so he simply continued to kite the monster. He was definitely not ready to die yet, because he had just bought himself a new PlayStation for the new year and had not yet had time to go through all the exclusives. Despite his heroism, Yang Hu did not want to die, so he ran with all his might. The monster gradually approached and almost overtook him. Then there was a strong surge of energy, just like the one that recently had to turn off the internet for everyone for weeks. We are transported back, the main character grabs the blade, the seal on his hand begins to glow strangely, showing that the guy has a connection with this sword. That blow may have caused significant damage to this Eye of Cthulhu, but the young man lost his balance and lay on the ground. He could easily be wounded by the next attack. But noticing the state of the monster, he stopped worrying. This giant demon was defeated, and his body began to gradually disappear. The place where Yang Hu found himself reminded him of a museum from his hometown. Everything seemed unreal and otherworldly. At that moment when he was transported to this world, he only had two questions. Why was he here and where did the other people go? Not far ahead, he noticed an active fight. He decided to intervene, even though at that moment, even the middle stage magic that Rudius possessed in the junior classes was inaccessible to him. The swordsman himself did not understand why a 6th level monster appeared in a peaceful city far from most of the world's problems. He understood that he could not defeat him. While the guy was running towards the person he had noticed, he suddenly felt a surge of energy. The power began to gradually spread throughout his body along with the blood. Even though Yang Hu really became stronger, his solo leveling brought great suffering. His eyes seemed to be burning, so he began to hold on to them. Having defeated this unusual creature, the cheerful boy collapsed without strength. His eyes began to slowly close and he hoped that he could rest a little. The people standing over the guy's body were discussing what to do with the teenager. They killed monsters and chose this path themselves and cannot force a guy with talent. One of the squad with a fox mask planned to erase the memory of a person who accidentally came into this world so that he could then return to his normal life. A man like Rimuru could not allow any civilian to know about the Pangu dimension, since only the culprits should deal with it. A week later, the young man met his nerd friend obsessed with anime girls and Korean grinders. This guy's name was Lu Wu, and he was part of the student committee, and he was also the main character's best friend. The main character suffered greatly, because he was absent from school for more than a week. His best friend was very worried and hoped that everything would be fine. The guy promised not to disappear like that again and apologized, but asked his friend to buy him a coffin in the form of some kind of console, for example, a Nintendo Switch. Today was the university's 70th anniversary, so everyone was entitled to free drinks and food. Lu Wu was amazed at his friend's irresponsibility. Among all the students, there were those who were loved more than others. One of such people was Si Bin, the chairman of the student committee. Her outlook and principles led to the unlocking of the special personal title Iceberg, although this did not prevent the formation of her fan club. Shibing was also a fan of Lu Wu, but the guy reminded him that behind his beautiful appearance there is often a demon in the flesh, or maybe something even worse. For the girls, there was a typical guy with short blonde hair. He could very well play a role in the new season of Sherlock. His name was Zhao Dong. The boy was the son of the richest man in the city, the head of the Bushido Club, a prize winner in wushu competitions, a playboy, a philanthropist. As usual, he tried every time to get the attention of the Ice Queen, but his attempts were always in vain. The main character treated Zibin like a guy, at least his friend thought so the two of them could only watch from the sidelines. True, Yang Hu himself did not agree with this. He worked so hard that he didn't even have time to complete daily routines in Honkai Star Rail, not to mention the girls. The only thing that bothered the young man was the pain in his eye. It had bothered him more than once, but the doctor did not consider these signs a problem. While in the restroom, the main character accidentally overheard an interesting conversation. Someone was talking about the loss of 2 squads in the Pangu dimension. The young man carefully, as if he wanted to get through Hitman 2 without ever raising the alarm, looked out of the slightly open door and noticed the king and queen of the university there. Hearing the familiar word and paying attention to the external similarities, the boy quickly realized who exactly Zibing was. He had already met her before. However, the guy's careful surveillance was quickly discovered. The stranger was extremely unhappy that such an important conversation had been overheard. The scary guy was number 7 on the blacklist of cultivators of the Bushido Club. It's a pity that you couldn't get a car for defeating him. The meeting with a man of such strength tensed the young man, but in time he remembered the rules of the educational institution prohibiting any fights. But even though the 7th place seriously tried to lift the main character, he couldn't even move him from his place. He didn't understand how this bastard could be so heavy. The young man himself, feeling confident after remembering the words of Kamina from Gurren Lagann, decided to show what he was capable of by quickly putting the big man down. The main character's body moved on its own, so he didn't even know how exactly he did something like that. However, even though the guy was able to win, he was noticed by 2 standing in front of the door. He regretted that he had not taken that pen that erased memory after the meeting from the people in black. The main character asked Zibin where he disappeared to last time, and the girl sincerely did not understand how his memory was preserved. Xiao quickly realized that the situation they were facing was difficult, but he was ready to resolve everything quickly and without any doubts. Iceberg saved the blonde from making a mistake. She asked Zhao and her people to go away while she solved the problem on her own. But the proud boy could not believe that he was ordered to leave. He wanted to fight, especially considering whose mistake it was. However, as soon as he saw Zibin's gaze, he quickly understood everything, said goodbye, and went on to do his job. It seems the girl didn't really get along with him, barely restraining herself from demonstrating her trademark Detroit blow with 1,000,000% strength. As soon as the Zhao group left, Zibing invited the main character with her. He expected to receive a special prize for the help he provided that time. The beauty asked him to sit on the chair and just wait a little before she could perform the necessary procedure. The situation that happened between them seemed to the guy a repetition of the scenes of Horimiya. He was very embarrassed, because he had never encountered such an experience before. At one point, strange thoughts began to occur to him, as if a counterfeit of Felix from the Rezero was hiding in front of him, but he continued to hope for the best. However, everything changed when Yang Hu noticed a slight golden glow on the girl's fingers. She was definitely planning to do something. Before the main character gave his consent, Xibing planned to change his memories directly. This time it would really work. But the moment she touched the main character's forehead, a warm, almost fiery light began to pour out of his eyes. Even though the girl understood that the boy in front of her was definitely not an ordinary person, she was extremely surprised to see another new type of eye from Boruto. Memory erasing did not work on Yang Hu, so the girl decided that there was no longer any point in hiding the truth about this world from him. The beauty didn't have much time, so instead of explaining, she simply handed the young man a book about the world of Pangu and everything that bothered the young man so much. According to her, the universe is chaotic, and even though there is no sacred memory and extinct ones, previously the two worlds were united. They were created by the god Pangu himself and kept them together. Previously, the worlds developed separately from each other, and regardless of whether you believed in gods, you had to recognize Panga as a great being, practically the strongest. The dark space developed and changed over many centuries, at one point deciding to invade human domains. So that others can sleep peacefully and watch Mr. Beast's videos, their sect constantly engages in protection and hunting, maintaining the balance of power. Now, having heard this entire monologue, the main character began to understand exactly what the world in which he accidentally found himself was. But he was concerned about the difference between the worlds. The question that tormented the guy was quite simple, although logical. Different worlds and different living conditions, as a result, led to a different approach. The human world had many blessings and resources, sunlight and even red, ripe, and juicy apples. Its conditions were relatively mild. The fewer resources in the world, the more aggressive and dangerous creatures live in it. And it is not difficult to imagine why such monsters were born in that world. Although the guy could trust Zibin without a doubt, believing in the existence of demons and their king was not easy even for him. Yang Hu's eyes were special. They attracted the attention of the Dark Lord, and he would definitely send the Arankers and Hollows after the main character again. The girl warned that the skirmish a week ago would seem to the boy only the simplest test. Complex and dangerous battles lay ahead. Realizing that he didn't really want to get involved in this new DC universe, Yang Hu tried to quietly leave the room and go about his business. The situation was such that, regardless of the protagonist's decision, the monsters would still come for him, so he was left with no choice. She handed the newcomer a talisman. Its powers were limited, but in difficult moments when there is nothing to rely on, it can become a useful consumable. This whole magical battle looked cool, but Yang Hu didn't need any extra problems now. He didn't even know how to use such talismans. But Xibing was sure that sooner or later the boy would return on his own and ask to teach him. The girl saw potential in him. Walking in the evening of the same day, the guy thought about everything that had happened to him during the week. It seemed that even the quiet life of a courier was too much for him. And besides the constant doubts, the sixth sense in the form of a light bulb constantly lit up above my head, someone's attention was felt too clearly. The guy was on edge and listened to every rustle. Suddenly a mouse jumped out of the grass, followed by a black cat, like Tom and Jerry running from cover to cover. Even though the situation was tense, Yang Hu was happy, because these were just ordinary animals, although he did not know how much he was mistaken. A creature resembling Striga jumped out right from behind the tree. It clearly came for the boy's head, and he just continued to run away, cursing everything in the world. Despite its size, the speed of the monster was extremely high. The young man hardly dodged 2 blows with his paws. All that was left was to retreat. The main character already wanted to sell his soul to the god Ares in order to get the Blades of Rage and figure it out quickly. But unfortunately, this was not the same universe. A woman stood in front of the boy. She was practicing using a katana. Yang Hu tried to warn her about the approaching monsters, but she just didn't understand what he was talking about. Another monster joined the chase, which really wanted to feast on the main character. He ran until the melted snow, hoping to find a solution in the end. The young man was already being attacked, so in order to save himself, he temporarily borrowed her sword from the old woman. Turning around and repelling the blow was not such a problem. He also managed to cut off the hand of one of the monsters. It looks like the young man's melee weapon skills were upgraded to 100. Let him get it too. The unknown man sitting behind the tree rejoiced, because his boss had come up with a great plan. It was even greater than Aizen's plan, because only with a sword, Yang Hu could not do anything. But as soon as the enemy noticed what serious damage the monster had received, his mood worsened greatly. He did not understand how a noob could fight like that. Even though the boy caused serious damage to the monster, the severed hand was firmly attached to the main character's body, not allowing him to fight calmly. Starshuka could not believe that there was really someone next to the young man, because everything that was happening did not look like a prank. Since the situation was urgent, the boy still decided to use the talisman that Zibin had previously given him to protect himself from the attack. He wished that the monsters around him would disappear. Even if he was not a mob, his spiritual powers were enough to erase them in a few moments. Due to the bright flash of light, the face of the instigator became clearly visible. It was one of the henchmen of the Bushido Club, as indicated by the logo on the kimono. Even a couple of enemies could have dealt with the main character if he had not been given that consumable earlier. He was extremely angry with himself and understood that he could not fight now. Just like he said earlier, Yang Hu really didn't want to die, so he turned on his engines like Ida from My Hero Academia and began to run forward without looking back. The stranger returned and told their master Zhao about how strangely Yang Hu fought. He was even able to kill the ghosts who were sent after him. The blonde did not believe the story, because this simply could not happen, even if the monsters were not particularly strong. But there should be more than enough of them. Realizing that something very serious had happened, the guy ordered his ward to tell about the whole situation from the very beginning, so that they could figure it out. As soon as the attack happened, the main one returned to her with faith, as Zibing predicted. He asked for help because he could hardly cope without the talisman. Running into the room, the guy said that ghosts were chasing him. He asked to protect him with some kind of spell or at least teach him Avada Kedavra. It was not difficult for the girl to believe Yang Hu's words, because at that moment there was a low-ranking ghost behind him. The main character himself did not notice anything, but the girl was able to defeat the monster in just one moment, without even making an effort. Then Zibing began her lecture. Even though ghosts are monsters with low attack, their ability to move at will between two worlds is dangerous. However, then the beauty said that the previously attacking monsters were not ghosts. They were creatures from a different league, representing a much higher danger. The Ice Queen hardly cared about the guy's life, but the fact that he was attracting more and more monsters was a bad sign. The young man himself was not happy about this either, because a week ago he was still playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 calmly, and now he has to become an exorcist. The protagonist's reaction to this information made Zibin understand that the boy was hardly the hero in shining armor they were waiting for. However, Yang Hu didn't want to die either. He had to quickly find a solution on how to continue his quiet existence, otherwise he wouldn't die for long. Plucking up courage, the main character turned to Zibing and asked her to teach him how to destroy monsters and cope with various obstacles. The girl had no choice anyway, so she simply called the young man to follow her. Nevertheless, he really would no longer be able to live among ordinary people. On the ground floor, there was a huge room with a bunch of bookshelves and an unusual circle inside. It seems to me, or in this place, Asta subdued his demon. The girl immediately warned Yang that if he wanted to stay alive, this was probably not the best plan, because studying to become a demon hunter was extremely difficult. Even though no one gave any guarantees of success, the young man was confident that he would still cope with this quest and would nevertheless become a pro in killing the undead. Having received the final consent, Zibing took the talisman in her hands and began the ceremony. The guy hoped to become a shaman king and become famous among people. Unlike the first talisman, this one began to glow blue, sending small lightning bolts in different directions. Next, the boy had to go inside the circle. After using the talisman, it also began to emit a large amount of light. Full of confidence, turning on the GigaChad mode, the guy sat down and began to wait for further instructions from his girlfriend. The girl talked about how to become a hunter. First of all, you need to know your spiritual power and greatly improve it. Many people consider such things to be fiction of manga and games, but in fact, life energy really exists and is the main secret of any hunter. Before their generation, even the strongest and most skilled of warriors could only reach the tip of this huge iceberg. The spiritual force itself is believed to come from dark matter. Its detection is only possible in theory. In practice, no one has been able to do this. The array in which the guy is located is one of the possible means for learning such a secret technique. The first trip will be extremely difficult. After comprehending it, Yang will not become too strong. He will hardly be able to create a couple of shadow clones, but this only takes a few minutes from the beginning. As soon as the main character concentrated, he noticed how much spiritual energy was in the space around him. There was little time, so the girl asked her friend to direct the power to the spiritual principle, which is located in the abdomen. The pressure in the air increased greatly as soon as the boy took the first step on his path to conquering spiritual mastery. An hour later, the young man began to feel serious differences. He noticed that his actual power increased several times, and his spiritual strength began to noticeably increase. Then Sibing said that the ability to control the flow of spiritual energy in a normal situation makes you a shinega and sends you to the Gotei 13. But now the young man has already become a hunter. Next, the girl planned to teach the main character to use the special technique Fall of Evil Spirits. It was simple but extremely effective in battles. Yang Hu was truly amazed at how impressive this technique looked, but this was only the beginning of an art that every student should touch. Strengthening spiritual energy required a lot of practice and perseverance because it was not an easy task. And since even after gaining strength, the main character is still quite frail, when meeting a serious opponent, he should use talismans until help arrives. The boy thanked his girlfriend for her help and promised to practice all his free time, despite the fact that the sequel to Magic and Muscles will be released soon. Even though the task was clear, achieving success in it was not so easy. Constant training had to become part of the young man's life. In the Wudao Hall, Zhao was extremely indignant that his girlfriend taught the young man to use spiritual power. Now getting rid of him would be a difficult task. Previously, Zibin's actions always helped the blonde's side, but now the beauty decided to take her friend's side and help some guy with his problem. Zhao, according to him, spent a lot of effort to realize his own plans, so he will not allow someone like the main character to ruin everything. As a place for training, Yang Hu decided to choose a sports ground. Practice was much more exhausting than any cardio. Suddenly, the boy's phone rang. It was his employer, who was extremely dissatisfied with the young man's lack of desire to earn money. Realizing that he didn't need dismissal now, the young man decided to be like Jia Hyun's uncle from Windbreaker and ride his bike faster than the wind. The work was quite difficult, both morally and physically, because when the elevator does not work, few people can get to the 30th floor on foot. His strength was coming to an end, and the last delivery was still ahead, but the thoughts of how the guy could buy something at the Steam New Year sale with this money motivated him. While the guy was delivering one of the orders, local hooligans attacked his bike. They were waiting for the guy below to get paid for it. The head bandit enjoyed someone else's chicken, noting that Korea has better chicken than anywhere else. The boy got very angry when he noticed the bastards who stole someone else's order and began to charge them for it. He was strong and could stand up for himself. Who knows, food is sacred, and the hooligans were glad that their goal had finally arrived because they were already tired of waiting for it. In their city, this gang was quite well known, but the young man had never crossed paths with them before and hardly crossed the road. The villain with the crooked hair asked the boy not to be offended by them because they were only doing what they received money for earlier. Nothing personal. Having attacked the young man, the hooligans planned to quickly deal with it, striking from all sides, but the power of spiritual energy made it possible to stop the beats. It seems that this group was also familiar with life forces. They considered the young man to be a demon because he was able to stop them in one fell swoop without any difficulty. The guy himself did not expect such effectiveness, but he still wanted to show off his flickering jabs in the version with a bat, so he decided to start with the leader. Before finishing the job, the guy talked for about a minute about how cool he was and why he shouldn't have been attacked after all. He was also interested in who hired this gang, but there was no need to get an answer by force. Zhao himself decided to intervene because initially he did not believe in these weaklings. The hooligans changed a lot. As soon as the blonde showed up, their behavior became extremely courteous and polite. They were extremely ashamed of their failure. The young man quickly realized that it was Zhang who was behind everything that was happening. He, of all those who knew about spiritual power, looked like a bad guy. There was no point in hiring anyone else, so the guy with the bad Nanami cosplay decided to deal with the main character himself. Although not much time had passed, Yang Hu had become quite familiar with techniques based on the use of spirit energy. He turned his aura into a dangerous snake. However, techniques of this level had no effect on the blonde. His barrier easily absorbed the monsters from the aura. The difference in experience made itself felt. Satisfied, Zhao quickly approached the main character and showed him what a real blow meant, sending the protagonist flying several meters. The blonde did not understand how some courier could get the attention of such a strong and talented hunter as Zibin. The hooligans held back very much, trying not to show their laughter. When they found out the reason for Zhao's grudge against an ordinary boy, they joked that the blonde would beat the girl off. The bad guy didn't consider the main character to be someone worthy. Among those he met, Yang Hu was just another non-entity. Therefore, he planned to deal with him immediately so as not to run into trouble later. Besides, he considered Zibin only his own. But giving up so easily was not part of the young man's plans. He was confident in his strength, so his spiritual strength responded and continued to increase. Jumping back, Zhao did not understand what kind of power arose from the young man in a few moments, as if he had eaten a devil fruit or something similar. However, even this was not enough for another attempt. The guy fell exhausted on the boxes lying behind him. He did not even have the strength to raise his head. Joa only considered the young man a weakling. If such a blow was enough for him, he was not even half of the blonde's current strength, let alone all of it. The head of the club called the guys behind him, not wanting to deal with the main character anymore since he obviously was no obstacle for him. But the young man only ridiculed his opponent because he only behaves coolly with those who have just started training and have not reached the same level. This made Jua very angry. He was even willing to go back to leave another scratch on Yang Hu's face. The main character asked to be given 3 months, after which he would show his enemy where bad people go after death. The blonde's counterfeiters did not like this. They wanted to stand up for their master, but the blonde accepted the challenge of the upstart, giving him exactly 3 months. And if the results of the training do not give anything and Yang Hu loses again, he will leave the college and then leave their city forever. As a prize for victory, the main character wished that Jua would no longer bother Zibing. These conditions were equivalent in the boy's opinion. Even after listening to his opponent, the blonde decided to make a deal. He was as naive as a villain from an old cartoon about Jackie Chan. The girl herself watched everything that was happening from the sidelines. It seemed that she planned to intervene only when absolutely necessary, so as not to provoke an even greater conflict. The members of the Bushido Club did not understand why their boss agreed, but he only said that this deal was beneficial for both of them, especially considering how low the young man's chances were. In addition, right now it was not possible to kill the main character because of the talisman. The girl would find out about Yang Hu's death and would hate the blonde. After some time, the boy returned to the council room to receive recommendations for further training of spiritual power. However, the beauty pretended that she had not seen anything and decided to ask why the main character needed this. He could not say that he would fight for her. While his excuse seemed inappropriate but also illogical, Young said he wanted to defend better. But Zibing's opinion was that everything should have its time. Each stage of spiritual power is comprehended gradually, without any jerks. True, there was one way that would help to quickly learn the basics and move on to advanced techniques, as the main character wants. The only option for quickly improving skills was to gain real experience in the world of Pangu, a place where a large number of souls live. Even if the guy wants to go there, is he really willing to take such risks just to speed up his progression? Yang was a little doubtful, but Zibing only continued to egg him on, telling him how many in this world there were those who would still dare to train there. This place was indeed more dangerous and difficult for training than the palace of the Soul King. But the young man did not chicken out and was ready to leave at any moment. The beauty did not expect such persistence, so she was very surprised by the guy's confidence, but he wanted to defeat Zhao at all costs. Already in the world of Pangu, the guy followed the instructions of his mentor, but noticed that even while doing exorcism, he could not swing at the required speed. Suddenly he noticed a white tiger behind him. This enemy was an order of magnitude stronger than anyone the young man had faced before. But on this tiger sat another hunter of evil spirits, although his image was much more canonical than the image of any exorcist the guy knew. The main character was about to go to the wiki to find out where he could buy or open this mount when the stranger approached him. The man explained that the main character put in too much force, which made him get tired faster and reduce his efficiency. At this rate, the result would not appear soon. Usually the boy did not like to listen to the advice of old men, but now things were different. A practical hint would help him defeat his opponent. The mysterious Slayer of Evil had one interesting technique that would help the main character quickly improve his own skills. But the guy's fear indicated that he was not ready to resort to such tricks, which means that the stranger would not be able to tell about the secret method. When the young man was able to justify himself, the man asked him why he needed strength. Risking his life was simply stupid and ineffective. A moment later, the young man said that he was doing this for the girl, but since it was a secret, he spoke very quietly. It didn't cost a man anything to teach this technique to one young man, and if their meeting turns out to be fateful, then it's only for the better. This blow easily defeated a 6th-level monster, and unlike the blue Satoru Gojo, anyone who had grasped spiritual energy could master this technique. The guy was surprised rather not by the force of the blow, but by how this monster crept up with him so quietly that he didn't even notice him, even though he was standing so close. Spiritual power was present in this world at every step, so the fastest way to level up was to absorb the energy of defeated enemies. Next, the man handed the boy a spell and left in his own direction, wishing him good luck in winning his beloved girl. Before leaving, the stranger said that if they were destined, they would meet again and then he would tell his name to the main character. But this man seemed to know more than he told. He was surprised how many things changed because of the arrival of someone with double pupils. The wanderer had not met anyone like this for many centuries. Meeting with everything unusual was a fresh breath of air for him. After 15 days of staying in Pangu, the young man became more and more skillful in killing monsters and absorbing their power. This time he used Spike's technique from Brawl Stars' Cactus Bloom. The technique was able to destroy the monster in just 1 instant, after which Yang Hu was able to take a piece of the power of the defeated enemy for himself. As the stranger said, absorbing someone else's aura gave a significant boost to progress. Now it becomes easier to strengthen your spiritual power every time. True, the more the young man did this, the fewer monsters remained in the area, and the more difficult it was to continue farming XP. The main character did not plan to give up, so as not to give himself up, he over and over again replayed Joa's words in his mind about how weak and insignificant he was. Of course, even though this guy was blonde, he was far from Griffith, although both deserve real punishment from the protagonist's blade. Since there was no choice left, Young decided to go deeper into the city. The principle was simple. The further you go, the more dangerous, stronger, and more valuable the monsters become. Shibing talked about how Pangu absorbs the ordinary world every moment, but he bites off such a small piece that it is simply not a noticeable phenomenon. The city that we have been watching for so long is only a small part of what was pulled to the other side. Walking through the streets of a settlement once inhabited by people, the guy could not detect even one monster, let alone a group. The truth is that his level was too low to notice. In this place, he was not the hunter, but the prey. But even so, fighting against superior opponents was easier than being defeated by such a terrible person as Zhuo Jie. The guy has mastered enough experience and a number of spells to resist several monsters at once. 2 weeks ago, he would have been dead. The method proposed by that traveler really worked. The young man noticed the difference almost immediately after he absorbed the monster. Yang's actions did not go unnoticed. To the sounds of battle and the vibration of spiritual power, someone more dangerous than a couple of monster losers came. One might think that this is Light Yagami in the form of the god of death, but this is an ordinary C-rank monster that stood out among its fellows for its high strength and speed. To defeat this one, you usually cannot do without a squad of 3 people, in which case defeating him is not so difficult. The guy's usual techniques turned out to be extremely ineffective. Even cactus bonds could not hold the monster in one place for more than a second. And one blow from a Class C monster felt like a log falling from a waterfall that hit the target. It was impossible to think of any other comparison. The young man didn't even have time to rest, because the monster was approaching even faster than before, while only running helped the young man stay alive. But this time, the goddess of victory smiled on a loser like Kazuma, who tied the monster with shaky stones and managed to defeat him. The Oni demon was simply crushed by several heavy boulders. With no way to dodge in time, it seems that even if he survived, his speed is still useless. Having finished off the monster, the main character was glad to absorb its power. It was more concentrated than that of ordinary monsters that he had killed earlier. The principle was simple. The larger the creature you kill, the more spiritual energy you receive. The guy was ready to grind until he was blue in the face. The rate of increase in strength amazed the guy himself. In a month, he managed to become 6 times stronger and 4 times faster. Continuing his pace, he would soon catch up with Zhao. At the moment, he had already killed 23 Class C monsters. He could even be called a good hunter, considering the survival experience he had acquired. However, this was only the beginning. The young man was looking forward to watching all the anime that were supposed to be released in January after his return. Before resting, Yang decided to hunt some more for the monsters that no longer posed much of a threat to him. Meanwhile, in the ordinary world, everything was also calm, except for the one who met him at the entrance to Panga. Among his classmates, the young man even noticed Dante, but his best friend Lu Wu was nowhere to be found. Even though he played at night, he was already at the university at that time. Then one of his classmates informed the young man about what had happened. The plump one had been severely beaten earlier, so he went to the hospital and is undergoing treatment. Rushing to his friend, Yang Hu couldn't believe that this had even happened. He also wondered if he had dragged his friend into this. The bespectacled boy was surprised to see the main character here, because he has problems with his studies, work, and a bunch of other things that only he himself knows about. The guy immediately asked who beat Lu Wu, but he did not plan to answer, deciding to pass off the incident as an ordinary fall from the stairs. Then Yang threateningly asked whether this was connected with Zhao's gang or not. His friend's reaction made it clear that this was indeed true. That time, the guys learned that Lu Wu was a good friend of the main character and decided to punish him for his insolence towards Zhao. They had no complaints against the bespectacled man himself, so they even felt sorry for him. But his good friend was their enemy. Seeing the lengths to which this villain went to annoy him, the young man was ready to go and pay his opponent with an equal coin. Lu Wu asked him not to make Yang stupid, because he didn't believe that he could deal with the blonde's followers alone. The main character hasn't found Satan's child lately, and the devil's maid hasn't moved in with him, which means he can hardly cope with them. Worried about his adopted brother, Lu Wu asked not to do this because if everything turned out worse, the main character would simply be killed. Even a month later, Zhao's henchmen laughed at the incident when the boy challenged their boss. They did not understand why their leader was giving time to the weakling. But the guy quickly made himself known, practically knocking down the front door of their headquarters. No one expected to see the guy in advance. Young insisted that the blonde come down to him, but the extras did not plan to convey the young man's request. Then he decided to act differently. There was one rule in the Wushu organization. Everyone has the right to challenge the leader, even strangers. The winner becomes the leader of the entire community. They planned to attack the main character in a crowd so that he would not cause Zhao problems, but this time the boy scattered them like Thorgel of the Yums Vikings. Then the main boss of this tower returned. He did not understand what kind of noise was happening on the first floor and came to sort it out. The guy wanted to figure it out because the blonde had dragged a stranger into their affairs, and as you know, that's not how things are done. The confidence that he no longer needed to train and the current strength was enough amused Zhao, but even so, he accepted the challenge of the main hero. One of the ordinary soldiers came to the chairman to report the news that the duel planned in 3 months had begun ahead of schedule. The blonde was considered the best of the best, because in Wushu he managed to earn medals throughout the country, but he did not know that the guy had a plot on his side. The girl went inside the arena and began to scold Zhao for his recklessness, but Zibing's question was wrong, because the challenge was made by Yang himself. Understanding the difference in strength, the beauty insisted that the main character come to his senses and cancel this fight. Now, in her opinion, he was not ready to fight. But Steve from Minecraft has already decided everything. He must fight no matter what, because the honor of his friend is at stake. Then one of the organization members told the girl about what happened to Lu Wu, so that she would understand what was going on. In order not to show off, Zhao decided to use the weakest technique of all that he currently possesses. Then, in his opinion, the fight will be equal. The blonde's speed was higher than that of the monsters he had fought with before. After all, the words about the strength of the head of Bushido are not empty words. But the guy himself became stronger. Even the antagonist noted this. He was sure that one blow this time would not be enough to win. Zhao continued to taunt the guy, talking about how easy it was for him to deal with him right now. At this moment, the protagonist's Akuma mode was activated. Yang's eyes began to burn with fire, as if he were Scorpio from Mortal Kombat. Dodging the blow after awakening the double pupils of the beating was not a problem, because Zhao's speed had become significantly lower in sensations. Everyone around was truly stunned, because the boy was the first who managed to dodge such a blow. Zhao himself could not believe this. He considered it impossible that in just a month of training, someone could reach the level where they could dodge such attacks. The guy's speed allowed him to move as if he were an alien from the Omnitrix and not a person. He bounced off walls, instantly moved, and simply dodged. At especially successful moments, the young man struck back, nullifying or even surpassing his opponent. It was difficult for those around him to believe that the main character was able to avoid such lightning-fast strikes that not many would even react to. Then Zibing herself decided to explain what was happening. Zhao had already used this technique on Yang earlier, which is why he was able to react to it and dodge it. But even so, it was extremely difficult to believe in it. Hardly anyone who saw the technique once would be able to successfully avoid it next time. The blonde continued to increase his speed, as if they were not fighting but playing Forza Horizon 5, but even this was not enough. Each time the antagonist's blows did not hit the target, forcing his fist to constantly beat the air. This made Zhao himself very nervous. The main character himself understood the difference between them. A month is too short to gain the necessary combat experience, and the dark energy of the blonde was extremely dangerous. But even so, the young man was not going to give in and wanted to defeat Zhao, destroying his reputation and helping his girlfriend out of a difficult situation. Watching his opponent's movements, Yang Hu was finally able to notice the moment when he needed to go on the attack and begin to impose his own pace of battle. The young man decided to remember the movie Real Steel and finish the fight in boxing style. The invincible champion received 2 powerful blows to the jaw, after which he fell to the floor without the strength to do anything. He did not seem to like the sensations from such strong blows. Even though Zibing was rooting for the main character, she was surprised that the young man managed to achieve such a serious result in just a month. However, it was too early to rejoice at the victory. The blonde rose to his feet and continued to talk about how he would not lose to anyone. To win, Zhao decided to use demonic technique. Even if it was not according to the rules, the blonde did not care. He wanted to kill Yang. Shibin tried to stop the crazy guy. She insisted that he stop it because it was too much to use such a thing on a newcomer. Realizing that he had no choice, the main character also decided to use his abilities. He relied on the whip, with which he defeated more than 100 enemies. The plant quickly entwined not only Zhao's technique, but also himself, forming from this a kind of cocoon in which only defeat awaited them. The blonde couldn't believe it because previously a beginner had never reached an advanced level of spells in a month, and he had never seen black lightning. To ensure the end of the battle, Yang Hu once again attacked his enemy, sending him flying towards the opening from which he had previously entered the ring. The members of the Wushu organization were amazed at the boy's skill because their invincible leader was punished by some weakling, which they considered him to be. Shibing was happy for her friend and congratulated him on his victory, even if at first glance the outcome of the battle seemed obvious. In order to comply with all the formalities, the beauty asked the blonde whether he would challenge the result, because he lost the fight even at the moment with the spell. But apart from threats and a pitiful appearance, Zhao's followers could not offer, now according to the laws of the organization itself, Yang Hu to become its leader. What was happening in the arena surprised all the newcomers who did not understand how the leveling system worked in this world. Everything here was even more confusing than in Path of Exile. To explain all this, Zibin decided to enlist the help of a very cultured dog. There were several varieties of cultivation, the mainstream being the one that focused on the use of spells. The less popular were martial arts. Less common was the option of using rune weapons, various talismans and amulets. They were effective but too expensive. Then we are taken forward some time. Having taken revenge on the blonde, the main character continues to live his ordinary life. This month, the young man received a lot, but was forced to pay a significant fine for missing work days, because he missed a lot over the past month. The guy himself dreamed of how he would become rich and famous, and his boss would be on his knees pouring Mountain Dew into his glass. However, the reality was that in order not to pay 1/4 of the salary for absences, the guy was forced to pour grape juice into his boss's glass. Having received the proceeds, the young man hurried home. He wanted to please his father because for once they had the means to live. But as soon as he went home, he saw a huge number of Zhao's followers in his apartment. They had been waiting for his arrival for a long time. His father sold the house and owed a large amount of money. It looks like he will soon become another Ascalades the next time his face is seen. The young man was in a hurry because it was necessary to sort out the problems created by his father. He even left a note in which he asked to understand him and not to look for him. A pug blocked Young's way. He had no plans to go anywhere, so the boy just stopped and waited for something to happen. But after a few seconds, the dog took a few steps forward, touched the main character's wheel and fell, pretending to have been run over. At this moment, the protagonist's social rating dropped significantly. Even children passing by him began pointing their fingers to say what a scoundrel he was. The women standing nearby called the young man inhuman and empty, and also added the price of the puppy that was lying right in front of the guy. The spirit of the Dovahkiin awoke in the young man, but he did not decide to put baskets on the heads of the NPCs. He simply took the dog and moved on, planning to get $8,000 for it. Those around him were dumbfounded by such an act, but the main character was in no hurry to explain anything, but simply continued to pedal with all his might. True, the guy put the pug in the nearest safe area. As soon as he drove a little further, this dog turned out to be difficult. She was very indignant because such a cutie was left alone. Looking at the back of Young, who was leaving on business, the dog promised to meet again. In another world, something strange was happening. A guy who asked to cut his hair shorter on the sides and was riding his motorcycle a little on top. Having reached the place, he turned to some creature. He looked like a raid boss and seemed to have a high position. The biker was interested in work. The monster really had a plan, and his follower will now have a new task that needs to be completed quickly. The bad guy definitely promised to complete the task quickly and without any unnecessary complications. The stranger was sent to fetch the eyes of the beatings. The man had to get them and then return back as soon as possible. The topic of the legendary student interested John Ye, so he confidently set out to carry out the mission entrusted to him. We are taken to the main character, who again found himself in an incomprehensible place and no one knows how. Different runes were carved around him, and on the floor there was a circle different from all others. Suddenly, a huge eye opened in front, strongly reminiscent of the Eye of Sauron. It looked straight into Yang Hu's soul, making him freeze in fear. Soon, a hand also appeared out of nowhere. Various runes and chains rolled it away. The creature warned the guy he had nowhere to run. The index finger of the huge monster almost reached the eyes of the main character. It seems that this creature needs them too. It turned out to be just a dream, but as soon as the guy woke up in front of him, he noticed a strangely shaped pillow that had not been there before. As punishment for the behavior, the dog used a secret technique that Hatake Kakashi had previously shown it. They often used it on reconnaissance missions. True, the boy himself did not appreciate such a joke and sent his new friend flying, not understanding how he even ended up inside his room. The dog, like a real gentleman, said hello because he was glad to see the main character again, but Yang Hu saw a talking dog for the first time. His reaction was appropriate, but now he has a partner like Ichigo Kan, so his adventures should become even more interesting. According to the main character, Pug most resembled an unusual demon, because his ghostly form and the ability to speak are definitely not typical of dogs. To test his theory, the young man used a wind elemental spell and directed it towards the dog. But the dog was able to repel such a weak spell with just one paw. He didn't even need to put up a barrier or do anything like that. If it was a demon, the main character immediately realized that he couldn't cope here. It seemed that even though he had defeated Zhao, it was too early to complete his training. But Pug threw a notebook at the young man's face as soon as he uttered his hypothesis, because the dog was not a demon, but a faithful assistant to the hunters. Creatures following their owner and killing various evil creatures with him are very rare, so the dog wanted more attention and respect. Such companions were called ghostly animals. They were indeed rare, but as a rule, they had a large supply of energy. The dog invited Young to rejoice because now they are like Bonnie and Clyde. Their destinies are connected, which means that from now on they will hunt demons together. But the idea seemed crazy to the main character, so he almost immediately abandoned it, deciding to have lunch first. Unexpectedly, Sebin called the young man and asked him to come to the city, because there was an important conversation about the alliance. While the main character was talking on the phone, his pocket monster ate all the cooked noodles, which greatly upset Yang. He decided to take revenge on the ghostly animal, like the blonde, by sending him flying, but the dog was many times stronger than that man. The first thing the young man needed to do was to show up so that the beauty could give him his own demon hunter license. Everyone, without exception, starts from rank G. There are not many missions and advanced spells available to them. To get more, you need to advance. The young man defeated a more skilled demon slayer, but he will still start from a low rank. Si Bing was worried that this would not suit him, but it seems that the main character is happy with this. All beginners are sent to a special training center, where they are taught breathing and fighting techniques to increase their likelihood of survival and combat effectiveness. At the entrance, they were met by a girl. Her name was Han Ziki. She was the president of the Hunter Association. Although she was inferior in strength to Netero, she performed her duties well. True, Sebin immediately warned the main character that the chairman's character is difficult, and this could add problems to them. The young man came to upgrade his license and gain more capabilities, including additional spells, but he seemed quite sad to Han. It seems that she and Zibing did not get along very well, so Han Ziki often had to be a laughingstock for her rival. This time she promised to win. The guy asked his girlfriend about the League of Five because this is not the first time he's heard this name, but he doesn't really understand what we're talking about. Then the girl said that this is a group of universities in different cities in which student demon hunters compete for the right to be the president of the association. The rivalry between their city and City H is the fiercest. It is where Han Ziki came from, and that is also why they do not get along with Xi Bing. The president of the League of Five schools has been the same person for 7 years in a row, who came from the city Z in which they live. The main character was interested in who could be so powerful. Also from their city, Young wanted to know if he knew this person. But the girl only said that now the guy would not understand everything. The time when it would be worth worrying about this simply had not come. More importantly, the guy was faced with a serious exam which squeezes out all the juice even from those who are well prepared. They, like gladiators, will have to fight and show their skills, but suddenly the center of the stadium began to gradually collapse. A huge cage with an incredible number of seals appeared from underground, restraining the nine-tailed fox from going on a rampage. The creatures this year were extremely powerful. They could turn into demonic beasts and even ghosts. Anyone who was not ready had to leave the test. Despite the threat, the young man had to win this difficult tournament and improve his license in class. This is the first step towards his goal. The monster that appeared was slightly reminiscent of the one he defeated the first time he arrived in another world, but it was much more dangerous. Many tried to inflict any damage on this monster, but many techniques simply did not work on this monster. And its high speed put a final sentence on those who hoped for a miracle, not giving them the opportunity to use the techniques again. The man watching the test was extremely disappointed with the candidates because they used the simplest expulsion techniques on higher monsters. True, in his opinion, there were those who still deserved a share of attention. The group of such students included Hanziki's companion, who constantly attacked the monster. Where others gave up and admitted defeat, Tanaka from volleyball found an opportunity to break through and become even stronger. He was not afraid of challenges, but completed them. The monster's 6 heads were not enough to cope with him. The guy believed that he could have mastered even 10 or 12. Sitting above, Han was happy that this year, University H would finally show its true potential and strength. So that Guy Fancy could prove herself even more, through telepathy, the girl asked to give the enemy a taste of his own strength. Then the bald man used the subjugation of the undead, and set a large flock of small and weak monsters against the largest and strongest monster. Also, with the help of submission, University H wanted to take revenge on City Z for humiliation. They wanted to scare the speaker Yang Hu with a large number of ghosts. But the reaction of the creatures to the guy turned out to be different. All the ghosts that came too close realized the difference in strength. The guy was head and shoulders stronger than any local monster. Han could not believe that the monsters were afraid of someone like the main character. They were not weak. Then she assumed that the young man was simply too strong. The examiner was surprised to see someone like that, because in order to scare a ghost like that, you must have their mark on you, which means the young man killed more than 1,000 of his kind. The guy didn't fully understand what was going on, but since the prey came into his hands, he wasn't going to just let it go. Then the young man used Trent Protector's ult to immobilize all the monsters surrounding him and cause fatal harm to them. And after he killed all these higher monsters without thinking about anything, the boy absorbed the power of each of them in front of everyone. Other students realized how big the difference was between them and the favorites, because as a group they could not defeat one demon. But here a guy solo killed everyone with one technique. Han couldn't believe that the boy knew a spell that could wipe out such dangerous and powerful creatures from the face of the earth. Baldy began to complain to the examiner that the main character was a bidder and should be disqualified from this test. However, the blonde did not agree with the guy. He explained exactly what technique Yang Hu used to destroy his opponents. The first floor of the tower was cleared, so the test was supposed to continue on the next one, but Guy Fancy was sure of the scam and wanted to expose the young man later. The young man himself was surprised at how many people passed the first stage. It was truly unpredictable, because it was so difficult for them to cope. Baldy hoped to beat his opponent at least in rank because, according to forecasts, he had really great potential. The tower gave out rank E. The examiner praised Kafansi because this was really not a bad indicator. And besides, it was enough to obtain a high-level license. Hunt also hoped to beat her rival right here so that she could boast and troll Xibing later. But the protagonist's friend did not lose hope. Now it was Yang Hu's turn. Although it's unlikely that all this rivalry somehow bothered him, I think he didn't even notice it. The guy put his hand on the sphere and decided to show what he was capable of. The aura began to gather around his body, forming the fire of a lit candle. The strength of the main character was so high that the evaluation crystal was blinding with its light, no worse than flash drives in CS2. Everyone closed their eyes, waiting for the announcement of the result. Unfortunately for Kafasi, the young man beat him by a whole rank, receiving a grade of D. This was an incredible result that once again proved the superiority of University Z. As a reward for successfully completing the test, the young man not only received a new license, but in addition to this, he was given a book of advanced level spells. Not wanting to lose completely, Han turned to Xibing and announced to her that during the blood moon, she would show better results than her. But in turn, Yang Hu didn't even know what they were talking about, because no one had talked about something like this before. Meanwhile, a rearrangement was planned in the main character's room. The dog slowly but surely moved his things because now they are partners. Pug had more things than Frieren had in her suitcase, which was surprising, but it seemed like all of these items were extremely important to the ghostly beast. Due to the fact that the guy did not return for a long time, the dog was very hungry. He hoped that his new friend would return at least by morning. Having looked around, the dog noticed the goodies lying behind the door and had already set his sights on them. It seemed that if the young man did not return home on time, all supplies would come to an end. As a path to wealth, the young man and his partner decided to carry out the same scheme that worked for Young himself. The pug went out onto the road and lay down. On the path to their wealth, they were ready to resort to any means if it ultimately allowed them to eat a satisfying meal. True, the first client turned out to be not so simple. The man warned that if the dog didn't get up, he would lie down himself and then they wouldn't get away. They didn't want to know what kind of scam the old man in front of them wanted to pull off, so with their mouths open, they could only run away, hoping to save their money. The main character was glad that his legs learned to run fast while still at school. Otherwise, even having sold the dog, he would not have been able to pay for the man's treatment. The pug regretted his action because he did not have time to attack first. Instead, he himself was under attack and their plan failed. The only thought with which the main character agreed was that he considered his partner to be to blame for everything, because it was because of him that they were forced to suffer like this. What the dog ate in one evening was Yang's monthly norm, so since there was no more food, it was as if Alex imagined a piece of meat instead of his friend. Before something irreparable happened, the dog asked to wait a little and pay attention to the object that she would give. Even though the dog had a lot of things, luckily he was able to find the item he needed quite quickly. It was a special statue, which, according to the assistant himself, was more than enough to pay for all the eaten beach bags. At the bottom of the figurine, there was something written about exorcism and the help of the gods, but the young man didn't really believe in it, so he hoped to sell it at a higher price. But the dog insisted that Young believe him. According to the dog itself, this figurine calls on the Holy Spirit to help, which will help in battle or give good luck. There was nothing to do anyway, so the boy decided to try to do it after all. As a last resort, he could take it to a pawn shop. Using spiritual power, the young man planned to summon the Holy Spirit and ask him for money for food and rent, and he also wanted GTA 6 to come out on PC early. When nothing came of it, with eyes filled with anger, the guy looked towards his Nakama, who was already quietly trying to sneak out of the apartment. The dog said that the boy simply had too little strength to connect with the gods, so once he becomes a little stronger, everything will definitely work out. Then the ghostly companion decided to show how one really needs to call upon the Holy Spirits and ask them for help. He continued to perform some strange ritual, hoping to escape from this place as quickly as possible before he was cooked in a frying pan. Meanwhile, the same guy with the mohawk came to Zhao. It seems that now they will work together to defeat the main character. It turned out that they were not just accomplices, but relatives. He asked his cousin to help him with revenge because his pride had been seriously damaged. However, the cool dude did not want to get involved with losers like Zhao, who could not win against someone who was not officially a demon hunter at that time. While pouring his dear brother a Coca-Cola, the guy talked about how terrible and at the same time strong his opponent was. True, the hunter with the mohawk did not even plan to listen to him, because he was not interested in small fry like the one Zhao was chasing. His target was a demonic disciple. Right now, according to the information he received, this person is located in Z City. Having combined all the data received, the blonde suggested who exactly this special student could be. To further improve his abilities, the guy meditated and learned spiritual practices that could effectively improve his interaction with energy. The effect of such actions was truly amazing. It was as if he had entered a server in an MMO with X2, X3 rates and was not playing on pure classics. However, the main character could not spend a long time pumping up his spiritual abilities. His phone received a call from his boss. He again swore at the young man for again coming at the wrong time, and sometimes completely missing entire working days. The pug offered to teach a lesson to this uneducated man who only insults his owner, but it seems that the young man did not really like this idea. But the boy himself reminded the dog that if they had not started living together, he would not have had to work overtime to cover expenses. Just a few minutes later, the guy was already rushing to work. On the way, he met his hickey friend, Lu Wu. He was finally discharged from the hospital. He also congratulated the boy on the fact that he can now calmly spend time with Zibing and not be afraid of anything. At that moment, Zhao and his brother were watching them, but Mr. Iroquois could not say for sure whether it was the same person or not. He decided to use summoning magic and create an oblivion spawn in his hand, an easy task for a hunter of his level. At this moment, the young man's eye began to burn so intensely, as if he had just been hit, and he even bent over in surprise. But such a reaction proved to the monster's follower that it was the main character who was his target right now. He planned to kill the boy, but to bring him to a similar state, the bad guy released a spider onto the Rouge, which was supposed to help with this. This little guy is enough to deal with even B-rank mages, not to mention someone who got D. The spider moved quite briskly towards the main character and his friend, planning to bite as soon as possible. However, The pug hastened to prevent this from happening. He quickly swatted the insect and continued to guard his owner even outside the house. The main character turned to the dog and asked why he even left the house, but according to him, he was afraid to die from loneliness within 4 walls. Since the pug did not eat anything for breakfast, he decided to feast on the spider. And besides, this creature was absolutely not dangerous for him. The bad guy quickly realized that this dog was no ordinary dog, so he planned to pay more attention to him. But the villain was unable to attempt a second attack because Zeben quickly appeared. The girl could become a serious opponent. It didn't take her long to discover traces of those who were following Yang, but she had no idea that her friend had almost become Spider-Man just now. A notification about another test for hunters came to the guy's phone. The red moon was also mentioned there again. This time, the young man decided to ask about it. Then the beauty said that on the bloody moon, monsters from the depths of the dark world come out and do everything to sow even more chaos and discord. The main character passed the assessment, but this is not the end. The announced test will allow the guy to take the position of a junior demon hunter and join the troops. The celebration in honor of the 70th anniversary of the university came to its main part. The main character and his friend were walking around the educational institution when Khan saw them. While the guy was talking with Lu Wu, it seems that his ghostly guardian managed to acquire his own fan club, which was in no way inferior to Zhao's club. But such injustice irritated Young, so he stopped Pug's fun, reminding him that now was not the time for such a thing. Everyone around was talking about a guy unfamiliar to the main character. His name was Zhang Ye. The young man decided to contact one of the students to find out the details. Han then intervened and decided to explain that Zhang Ye was the president of the 5 schools, whom everyone recognized as a genius for his achievements and progressiveness. Soon the beloved S-rank hunter appeared. In his costume, he looked more like one of Nucky's soldiers, Jason's brother. The mysterious guy knew the main character, because now Yang is the president of Z University. Zhang Ye also invited the main character to the show that he will show at night. Even though the young man promised to come at night, he planned to work almost all the time after school, so he was unlikely to be able to get there. But having hastened, the young man still managed to be in the right place at the right time. Everyone around supported the brilliant demon hunter. He began his performance with amazing tricks that no one had seen before. His illusions were much cooler than Itachi Uchiha's. You couldn't take your eyes off them. Everyone around saw a huge number of beautiful butterflies, bright and colorful. They flew across the sky and hovered so that they could be better seen. Even the dog saw butterflies, but there was something strange in this because instead of these beautiful creatures, the young man saw the very same spiders, one of which was supposed to bite the guy earlier. It seems that number 1 among the 5 schools is by no means an ally to them. All these spiders are fatal to humans, and such a number of them brings bad thoughts. Zhang Yi expected that among everyone, only the main character would notice the setup. After all, he is the only tryhard among the local students. However, according to the magician, it was already too late to do anything. Zhang Ye wished all the students a beautiful blood moon. When it finally started, the S-rank guy ordered all the insects to come down so they could start wreaking havoc. Among the kids, there was also one of the most dangerous monsters in the world of Pangu, an ancient demonic spider. Its sizes differed significantly. As the main puppeteer said, it was already too late to take any action because the monsters were among the students. Almost everyone who stood in front of the stage found themselves inside a cocoon. Many spiders wove a huge network out of them, moving along which they overtook their targets faster and faster. The few who managed to avoid falling into the hands of monsters began to use spiritual powers for protection, but among them was a guy with a mohawk. Khan spoke out against the main boss. She called for help from a fiery phoenix, which was extremely effective against such creatures. But even though his strength was great, hardly anyone was able to cope with such a dangerous enemy. It was bad, of course, that the strongest hunter turned out to be an enemy. Khan tried to help others until the last, tearing apart webs and driving away small spiders from survivors, but her strength was not enough for long. Then the young man decided to turn into Plantera from Terraria, and with his tentacles save those he could reach. Yang Hu planned to retreat, because the situation was definitely not in their favor. So accepting the fight now was tantamount to admitting defeat. The spider settled right above the campus. A large number of students became its victims, and the villain's plan seemed to be fully revealed. Kojanye turned out to be that same guy from the Iroquois. Among experienced hunters, he was called the Demon Slayer Viper, for his style and appearance. The guy was really amazed because Zeben was the first one who began to guess something after a long time. She was no worse than the first person of the 5 universities. The girl was interested in what exactly the villain needed in their educational institution. If he staged such a serious attack, he had to be prepared for the consequences. There was no need for Janya to worry, because it was too late for him to be interfered with in any way. He summoned his fire pearl again. The fiery sphere rose into the sky and caused significant harm to everyone who came within its radius of action. The strongest fire magic defeated many students. Even one of the strongest Zibing could barely stand on her feet after such a serious attack. It seemed as if it was impossible for them to emerge victorious from this fight. The sphere gradually only intensified its rays, causing unprepared students to receive serious burns and suffer from dehydration. Many of the survivors took refuge in a local store, among them Han, the main character and the bald one from the exam, as well as Zhao and his subordinates. The blonde's condition was quite serious. He had previously been poisoned, so now he could not even walk on his own. Only the main character managed to notice Zhao's strange behavior, but Han did not have time to react, so she found herself in mortal danger. The blonde placed that same spider on her hand, and then was slammed into the wall with one strong blow from the protagonist, who did not plan to spare the traitors. The poison removed almost all spiritual forces from the body, drying up the affected target to almost zero. It was extremely difficult to cope with such an infection. Zhao didn't want to let the main character ruin his life again, but he had no chance of stopping Yang, because the young man was a much more skilled hunter. The guy didn't plan to stay here, the bald man didn't understand where he was going, but he was just getting ready to do what he had to do. The blonde quickly revealed that he was on the same page with Janya. In addition, he also planned to challenge the main character, and now he would definitely win because of his trump card. Han wasn't sure what to do, but she trusted Yanghu because she knew he wouldn't do anything stupid. While the girl's health was melting before her eyes, Zhao said that soon everyone would die like her, including the main character and his friend Lu Wu. To influence the young man and draw him into the battle, the blonde placed a spider on the shoulder of the guy's best friend, and also placed a ghost behind him. At all costs, the blonde wanted to take revenge from Yang, because that time his victory was not real, he was just lucky. Khan tried to stop their only hope of victory, because impulsive behavior would only worsen the situation and allow the enemy to gain the upper hand. However, the longer the protagonist waited, the less chance his friend had of seeing the ending of Berserk, so he couldn't just stand by and watch. Zhao promised not to kill anyone present if the young man left the building slowly and without playing any tricks. Before doing this, the guy clarified whether the blonde's word could really be trusted, and he promised to keep his promise. As was discussed, the young man slowly walked out into the street, where one of the spiders was already waiting for him from above. He was ready to attack at any moment. As soon as Young moved to the required distance, the monster ended up on his neck and bit him. The impressions from this experience were not the best. The venom of the ancient demonic spider should paralyze the human body, and then slowly and extremely painfully corrode the entire body from the inside. The guy decided to test whether this poison was really so strong and won, because even after the bite, he showed Zhao with all his might what the fist of justice meant. The blonde couldn't believe that the venom of the ancient demonic spider was useless against the main character. It seemed that he had been greatly underestimated. The bad guy said that until this moment he felt sorry for the main character, because he didn't want to cause him too much pain. But now he will fight to the fullest. The giant spider began to throw down many of its small relatives, and along with them, new ghosts appeared, representing no less danger. Like Dementors, these demonic creatures sucked souls and all good memories from people, leaving only negative ones. Having expanded its territory, the huge boss spider has become an even more dangerous enemy. In City Z, it is this creature that controls all the other demons. And having acquired a huge amount of human spiritual energy, the monster has become an order of magnitude stronger and more dangerous. It is difficult to imagine what destruction awaits the city. The battle between Zibing and Janya continued. On his side was not only the Flame Pearl, but also the ancient demonic Spider Pearl, which was also his soul. The students held up the barrier, trying to buy time for the girl. The situation was serious enough that any option could do. The guy with the mohawk himself asked not to resist, because the more time passes, the stronger the wounds received from the battle will be. Xibing's holy sword was really strong. It could probably even be called one of the strongest, but it would not help against their strength. The brilliant girl was responsible not only for herself, but also for other students, so she had to find a way to save as many people as possible. The spider was guided by only one order. He needed to kill all the unfriendly hunters he met on his way. There were few options, and the young man hoped that even he would someday be lucky. With this thought, he took out the statue that Pug gave him in the morning. It was not possible to activate it with the help of spiritual energy, so the young man made an incision on his index finger and covered the statue with a couple of drops of his blood. The heavens opened up and a bolt of lightning struck the statue. The light, dispersing the darkness, gradually filled the building, displacing small ghosts from there. Everyone was amazed at what happened, but the most surprised was the dog, who was sure that this thing was faulty and really wanted it to be sold. The Guanine 100-armed bodhisattva appeared on the battlefield, but it seemed that the statue was not happy about the call. It could not understand who exactly called it in the middle of the day. Before crushing the ancient demonic spider, the statue suggested that he believe in Buddha and stop killing people. No one understood what the joke was, but the summoned divine spirit continued his monologue, inspiring the monster to do only good and forget about evil. Zhao ordered the spider not to listen to all the nonsense and continue to attack. His goal now was to kill the main character and the guardian he had called. Since the spirit of holiness gave the spider the opportunity to repent and improve, but the demon decided to give up happiness, he will be punished. The statue's face changed greatly. It swung its weapon and in one blow destroyed the creature that sowed only evil and chaos. Heavenly punishment turned out to be such a powerful technique that a dust storm arose all around just from the fact that the blade smoothly plunged into the monster. The blow neutralized the ancient demonic spider, leaving him without even a chance to recover thanks to his techniques. And remembering the ultimate technique against any insects, the statue, which does not have a slipper, decided to use its own foot. Divine power crushed the demonic spawn and gave him real happiness. Hundreds of dark souls scattered in all directions after that. The changes also affected another battle. Due to the death of one of the most serious opponents of the world, Pangu, the balance of power changed greatly. The first to notice the change in affairs was a boy with a mohawk. He could not believe that someone was capable of causing something like that into their world. The spider's soul began to crumble, which Zibing couldn't miss. She noticed how the spiritual power affecting them was gradually weakening. He planned to go to the rescue of the spider, but Zhang Ye was quickly neutralized by a precise blow from the girl. It seems that a solution was found after all. Having decided to get the maximum benefit from the situation, the dog reminded him of who exactly presented the statue to the main character and now insisted on 3 meals a day. No one could understand what exactly happened to the main character, but Young sat and prayed without stopping for several minutes. When Pug pushed him, the young man fell without even moving. The dog was worried about his nakama because he could die because of such a call. But Khan hastened to report that, like a typical protagonist, after a serious battle, the young man simply fell asleep. Xiao tried to escape, but Zibing quickly caught him and chained him. It looks like Jane Ye and his brother's plan had completely failed. The guy wasn't sure whether he would survive, so he decided to finally confess his feelings to the girl. He turned to Zibin and told her everything. The usually cold girl immediately blushed, and it looks like everything was mutual from the very beginning, so the guy is not destined to go to the gym and pump up. Soon after the victory, Class A arrived, a special unit dealing with leaks of knowledge and manifestations of another world. Minister Liu Zhenqing also arrived with the detachment. He wanted to find out what exactly happened here, because the destruction spoke of a battle on a large scale. Turning to his secretary, Red Snake, the minister ordered the start of the procedure for cleaning up the consequences. The students who were trapped in cocoons from the very beginning did not remember anything about what happened. For them, the concert of the chairman of 5 universities ended with a butterfly show. And those who still remembered something were additionally treated with the help of special rain, which erased the memories over a period of time. Janya failed. The Brotherhood became aware of this. It seems that the Cthulhu cult has even reached this universe. But even though such a valuable piece on the board was destroyed, they had only collected a little blood essence, which would not be enough for their plan. They decided to retreat temporarily, only to return later to announce the second phase of the celebration. The last battle turned out to be very intense, so the guy needed to talk a little face-to-face with his friend, but the dog was ahead of his master. The young man failed to make it in time, so he faced several more difficulties before he could simply rest. Although he hardly has such an opportunity, as soon as his father ran away with the money for the house, all his debts automatically transferred to him. Therefore, now the main character needs more and more money every month in order to at least somehow exist, otherwise he will have problems. The guy just closed his eyes for a second and immediately moved to the place that he had dreamed about earlier. The fire was so close, as if he could touch it and not get burned. But when he opened his eyes, Young found himself not in his apartment, but in that circle next to the imprisoned monster. It seems that this is something like his inner world. This time the monster was able to reach the guy. He was happy that he had finally found him. The monster's paw emitted a reddish smoke. The guy's body was completely in the power of the monster. He was held tighter than ever. It was impossible to even move his hand. But before anything happened to the main character, he woke up in his bed, and the sun was already shining outside the window. The dog was also glad to see Young, because he was sleeping so soundly that Pug was worried that the guy had died from constant overwork. Although the experience is almost always pleasant, the young man began to actively shake his leg so that the annoying dog would finally leave him behind. The young man slept for 3 whole days, showing virtually no signs of life, although outwardly everything was fine with him. Looking around, Yang Hu realized that he was not even in his apartment, after which Zibin turned to him and asked if he remembered anything before the coma. Vague memories of that dream had haunted the young man since the last time, but the images became a little clearer, and the monster's paws had become very elongated. The main character rolled up his sleeve, and strange shadow fragments remained on his hand, as if they were lying on his hand. But no matter how much the guy tried, he couldn't shake them off. But when the girl tried to cleanse this evil, the young man realized what Dalahan was like when Aqua poured divine water on him. According to Zibin, the guy's body was in contact with an ancient evil. What he saw was not exactly a dream, but something like a connection. Now there was only one person in the world who could save the young man from this misfortune, and this was the girl's master. Only she kept the knowledge of the most ancient of methods. The girl's master is a very specific person, but one thing was for sure: she would not help a student other than her own, which means that the main character has no choice. Whether the guy can become the master's student depends only on him. Yang understood everything perfectly and quickly followed Zibin. The place to which the beauty led the main character was a platform for joint activities, which was used by all the local old people. Sister Zhao, despite her age, moved quite actively. She liked the feeling of youth and lightness that came at such moments. Master Yi in this world did not fight with forest creeps as in the League of Legends, but rested in retirement, enjoying the life left to him. The young man did not understand what exactly was wrong, but as soon as they approached this group of elderly people, his eyes began to glow again. Shibing turned to her master. It was not easy to believe that such a decrepit-looking old man was really a specialist. However, the man was not very pleased with the way Zibin's boyfriend was talking to him. He asked him to reprimand him because he was unlikely to listen to him. Even though the girl still hasn't admitted her feelings now, Master saw the way she looked at Yang, so he knows everything. When the guys arrived at Master Zibin's place of residence, they were very surprised that he lived in a hospital. But the beauty explained that her master simply did not want to attract too much attention, which is why he settled in such a place. As soon as the main character went inside, one of the local residents attacked him, trying to attack him with a long pole. However, Yang could dodge such wide blows without any problems. It was just as difficult to hit him as it was to hit Neo. Another of the masters asked his friend to calm down. He considered the dog a demon and wanted to expel him, without even giving him the opportunity to explain the situation. The blonde didn't like to listen to moralizing either, so he decided to charge the bald master. The main character was worried about the health of the pensioner. But before the blow reached the man, his opponent, nicknamed Wukong, was already lying on the ground, completely defeated by the instant countermove. The concentration of the bald master was amazing, so the main character wanted to ask how this was even possible. But the man only imagined how the tree was burned into ashes. The ashes fertilized the soil so that a new tree could grow, and then it burned again. Having looked around a little, the young man noticed that among the local people, there were many strange ones. On the ground, walls, and even in the air. Noticing Master Yi in the midst of all this turmoil, the guy decided to come up and ask him about the covering that appeared on his hand after a coma. But the gray-haired man only asked the young man to quickly prepare for the afterlife because there was no way to save him. Shibin asked to explain the state of affairs normally. Although she warned the guys about her master's antics, she didn't say that he plays such jokes. Then, sighing heavily, the man decided to tell him more about the mark. It was left by a heavenly demon imprisoned in the depths of the world of Pangu. The world of Pangu is like a huge funnel. The lower you go, the more terrible the creatures you meet there. The heavenly demon who left his mark is in the very center. The mark that appears on the body of the main character belongs to this heavenly demon king, which means that he will hunt for the young man, even if it is not the heavenly general Maharaga, but it is impossible to win. When Zibing asked if it was possible to remove her, Master Yi clarified whether the young man was really not her lover, and when he heard a negative answer, he was happy. To remove this mark, you need to spend an incredible amount of energy. The guy most likely has never seen anything like this even in his life. Falling to his knees, Young began to ask to be taken as a student, because he understood that only in this way would he be able to stay alive. But the master asked him to raise his head. Even if the boy is looking for a teacher, Yi himself does not want to take students, but he still has one idea, since the young man is his dear friend Zibin. However, before helping, the grandfather asked for a favor. The main character had to invite one beautiful girl to dinner with Master Yi. Even though the guy understood the old man's feelings, Pug didn't really know why an old cow should nibble young grass. But they had no options. If this condition does not suit Yang, then he can really pack his bags and go pray to Buddha. Yibi wanted to make sushi from her master, and he in turn regretted saying something like that in her presence. Even though this was the only opportunity available to them, to arrange something like this would truly be a 100-year quest. Thanks to Pug's words that as long as they had a chance, they could definitely try, the young guy quickly perked up. To the surprise of the old man himself, the girl accepted the invitation. At that moment, Master Yi was ready to recognize Yang as his grandson if he repeated something similar a couple more times. While the old man was embarrassed to be next to such a beautiful lady, Pug was burning with anger because he had to act as the center part of their plan. Convincing the girl to go on a dog walk together turned out to be a good idea, and now it looks like the young man is sticking out several packages of Walmart noodles to his partner. Since the main character finally completed his task, the grandfather promised to help with the mark of the Heavenly Demon King. A rather serious ritual was ahead. It could hardly be called simple and painless, which Master Yi warned Yang about from the very beginning. While the young man was meditating, a beam of holy energy was shot into his forearm, which was supposed to clear the remaining trace of the curse. At this moment, the desecrated body of the protagonist began to burn with a righteous fire. It seemed as if he was Edward who stepped into the sun. This ritual turned out to be difficult not only for the guy. The old master also experienced certain difficulties because he had to keep this power under control. The embodiment of the monster gradually emerged from the guy's hand. All this time, he was active and received strength like some kind of parasite. A piece of the heavenly demon's power was released from the mark. Its gigantic body was next to the main character under the barrier. It seems that he was not very happy that the old man intervened and decided to help Yang Hu get rid of his persecution. The demon planned to deal with everyone, and then, with the help of the main character's body, get out of the bottom of the abyss in which he was imprisoned. However, the elderly master had other views on this matter. In one movement, he made a huge blade emerge from the ground and fly upward. One strong blow was enough to deal with the particles of power of the strongest monster from the world of Pangu. The mark on the protagonist's right hand also disappeared, along with the remnants of the spiritual power of the incarnation of the heavenly king of monsters. The young man thanked his savior, because if Master Yi had not taken up this task, the guy would really have died in the near future. But there was another side to the coin. Even if they saved the young man now, in 6 months the spell would weaken and the mark would most likely appear again. There was only one option to escape. During these 6 months, the main character needed to reach S rank in order to further hide from his worst enemy. The guy asked if it was difficult to get this rank, then Pug pulled out a hammer out of nowhere and hit him, because getting an S rank meant that you were one of the best exorcists in the world. The main character was completely inflamed and was ready to become the strongest, no matter what it cost him in the end. First, they decided to find the fruit of the heavenly demon. This little thing will significantly increase the chances of achieving the goal. And since the guy has already attracted the interest of the strongest demon, there will be no special side effects from him. All this was wonderful, but Master Yi noticed something strange. The main character was somehow different from other people, but the old man did not understand what exactly the difference was. Next, we are transferred to the Jade Palace. The ruler asked if there was any news regarding their plans. Then the Shadow Warrior said that the main character was now accompanied by an expert from the League in destroying demons, so it would not be easy to attack. They knew the location of the old men, the young man and his girlfriend, but this place was well defended. The assault would result in huge losses. Then the Dark Lord decided to find someone who could pull it off. A little later, the man turned his gaze to the girl standing behind one of the openings. He asked if she had heard the task, then the stranger gave an affirmative answer. Since Yang Ye had suffered such a crushing defeat, now it was the girl's turn to demonstrate her skills. To get snowdrops from Master Yi, the main character began to help him in every possible way in the hospital, peeling apples, giving massages, and reading new chapters of One Piece. All this was necessary for the Demon Slayer to teach Yang how to fight the strongest monsters of both worlds, but the old man did not want to strain himself, so he refused over and over again. The old man also asked not to call him a master. He reminded that if they start studying, then they can forget about practice, and the guy only had 6 months. The first step in obtaining rank S was obtaining rank A. This was of particular importance, because the penultimate rank gave access to many additional enhancements. Before leaving, Master Yi told the young man that he would not take him on as a student, but it made no sense to abandon him after he had provided such support. He left a book that was supposed to help Yang reach rank A, because now he was at the mark of rank D, which means there was a lot of work ahead. The sketches in these manuscripts talked about various spiritual practices that could greatly increase the amount of energy in the body. Also, the training described in this book boiled down to pumping up defense. Having learned to control his own aura, the young man will be able to use it for protection. Returning after a good time, Master Yi did not think about anything until the moment when he finally remembered the main character. The practice he left behind is beyond the capabilities of Class D. It can even kill if overdone too much. The man realized how much he had messed up and decided to return as soon as possible, so that if something happened, he could assemble the student piece by piece like a Lego set. But upon reaching the room, the man noticed how calm the aura was. The guy had completely mastered the proposed technique. It was hard to believe that in just a few hours, a newbie to mastering the aura could practice the yang-yang technique and do it so effectively. The guys really overdid it. It was impossible to keep this technique activated the entire time. Then we are transferred to Manga. The next grueling stage of training was supposed to be a fight with higher demons. There were an incredible number of various creatures that the main character had not even seen in this darkness. He must be ready to bravely face the unknown. Even though the young man killed monsters, he didn't do it the way he was taught, so he couldn't get any praise. Young began to complain to the master. True, the training of someone who is not now a student is hardly important for Master Yi. He sat on a chair and read fascinating magazines. The man reminded that he does not train Young, but only suggests in which direction he should move. Everything else must be understood by the young man himself. And so that the old man's desire would not suddenly disappear, Pug was forced to share a secret collection that he found under someone's bed. The creatures were so dangerous that an open battle could quickly end in a game over. Now the boy was coming up with tactics and looking for additional opportunities. The young man's strength was running out, because he had been fighting the enemies of the Pangu world for many hours. But he remembered Zibing's words. She mentioned the concentration of spiritual power in the air. When Master Yi woke up and remembered that he had forgotten about the main character for several hours while he slept, the man hurried to the mirror to check his condition. The main character's idea worked. He found a bug in this system, and now he will definitely be able to defeat all these creatures. He replenished his own reserves of spiritual energy right during the battle, almost the same way Naruto collected the Hermit's chakra. The techniques that the young man used intuitively were extremely difficult to master. The master was amazed at the talent of the protagonist, and at the same time was wary. By killing the red demon, Yang Hu received a higher quality spirit essence, the absorption of which brought additional characteristics. But the master continued to scold the guy. The technique he had learned was necessary for defense, not attack. The guy was very surprised by the arrival of Master Yi, because he had suddenly disappeared for several hours. Before the young man had time to completely move away from such a magical appearance, he was returned back to the human world. The barrier the guy uses to attack is closely tied to his life, so when he stretches it and turns it into a wave, he is taking a risk. The grandfather's rage was so great that everyone in the hospital building knew who he was shouting at and why. He was not even afraid of Group A. The master's help in developing strength was enormous, because thanks to his advice and help, it was possible to advance to the next rank in just 10 days. This breakthrough in level forced the guy to spend all the contents of that red demon core. Now for effective cultivation, he needs something stronger. The main character did not want to sit in one place, much less give up. He hoped to quickly overcome his own limits and reach the S rank. Pug didn't see this as a problem, because he believed that getting the core of a strong monster was a piece of cake for the main character. The dog decided to take the main character to one wonderful place, the apogee in the kingdom of Pangu, an area divided into 4 layers with different dangers. Gradually moving forward as if in some bagel, the guy will gain strength and meet more and more dangerous opponents. At the entrance to the cave, the guys were met by a strange dog. Pug asked them not to pay attention to him, because he was also a high-level monster, but on their side. True, as it turned out later, the spectral beast of the main character simply wanted to repay a debt to an acquaintance in this way and nothing more. However, as Pug himself believed, this did not matter. They are all also within the Pangu world, and there really are strong monsters here. Suddenly the rocks shook. A terrible rumble arose around, which could frighten inexperienced wanderers, but Young felt that he would soon reach his goal. A giant stone golem appeared in front of them. It definitely looked unhappy and wanted to kill the young man and his companions with just one precise attack. Even though the main character liked the game Shadow of the Colossus, he was ready to fight such a giant, but now such opponents were causing a lot of problems. As soon as the monster struck the first blow, Yang's loyal assistant Hu was the first to leave the battlefield, not wanting to go up against someone so dangerous. The boy himself considered this an excellent opportunity to pump himself up and become stronger. After all, Now this is precisely his main goal. This monster was simply incredibly strong, which means that there was a real treasure hidden inside it, and not a simple core. The young man became even more inflamed. This time the guy had to use all the knowledge he had gained during the devilish training and constant pursuit of more and more power. The blow was really powerful. The giant's cheek seemed to explode, but it seems that defeating such a large opponent will take much more time. Especially considering that after being damaged, this monster showed its true nature by opening its mouth full of metal teeth. Even so, the guy did not want to retreat. Now his path is only forward because the remaining time will end faster than he notices it. By using the defensive attack technique again, the guy definitely made Master Yi sneeze, but right now it was the only option. However, even such a powerful volley could only scratch the Colossus. Now the young man had less confidence in his strength, because his trump card did not work. Deciding to change his approach, the young man turned to technology, which had already saved him from troubles more than once, hoping that this battle would be the same. Once he captured a monster and made it immobile, he dealt critical damage to the area where any monster's core would normally be. The main character was ready to deliver the final blow before taking out the demon core. This had to be done carefully so as not to destroy it. But as soon as you prepared for the blow, some stranger took the laurels for himself, making his way to the core with the help of his staff. The man rejoiced at his success, because for a long time he had wanted to get such a powerful monster core, and finally everything worked out. However, despite the fact that the young man himself defeated this enemy, other people were surprised to see someone so young in these parts. The thief asked not to complicate his life, and to simply leave at this moment. After all, it is not always a holiday on the street of the main character. Disputes about the owner of the core did not subside. Then the silhouette of one of the Zhao family, the younger brother Chang Sheng, began to be seen among the people. In order not to make a fuss, the thieves' guy offered monetary compensation for the stolen cannonball. The amount was considerable. Pug's little paws itched. However, Yang Hu did not plan to give away what rightfully belonged to him. He decided to refuse this offer, almost without hesitation. Other residents began to be indignant, because this was a real act of disrespect for the Zhao family. They planned to teach the boy manners and how to speak with adults. Someone even tried to attack the young man, but quickly regretted the decision. The main character continued to insist that the core belonged to him. Then the younger brother ordered the man to attack the main character to show how many millions of power the Zhao family had managed to accumulate. This thief's name was Zhao Wu. He was the brother of the demon slayer's father, but since he was from a branch family, he also obeyed all the orders of the main branch. The man gained high speed and was preparing to attack at any moment. Everyone around laughed and whispered, hoping to see Yang Hu defeated. However, the boy, already quite tired of the whole circus that was happening, concentrated more spiritual energy. And then he awakened his eyes, easily blocking Wu's blow, as if he hadn't even noticed it. This shocked the demon slayer, because no one had been able to do this before. After another moment, the man, like fireworks, went with great speed towards the sky and then landed heavily on the stone rocks. No one was able to believe such high skill. Even the younger brother of the Zhao family could not find words after seeing it with his own eyes. Red tried to convince the main character that he should not relax if he defeated some weak man. He had not even shown his strength yet. A member of the Zhao family tried to attack Pug, then with the help of advanced techniques, Yang Hu helped him avoid a direct hit and neutralize the damage. Realizing that he had been outplayed again, the red-haired man became very angry. In his opinion, this competition had already turned into too much of a scam. The rest of the residents also did not plan to let the main character go, so like rain, a battle spell fell over the guy one by one. The boy used his legs to the maximum to dodge each fired projectile, and then used some kind of object. At this moment, the younger brother's mood was terrible, because this was the third time in the last 5 minutes that he had been beaten by an ordinary person. The member of the Zhao clan did not plan to let the main character go just like that. He wanted to figure it out and find out who this boy was. In the hospital, Master Yi tore and tore, because after leaving for just a day, he sees Yang Hu, who has gone much further than he should now. However, there was nothing to scold the boy for, because he returned intact and was also able to defeat Malphite with virtually no loss of spiritual energy. Even though this outing ended in success, the old man insisted that this couple should not go anywhere without his permission. This time they apologized and agreed to the condition. The master said, "Let the main character's talent be visible even without his glasses. He is not the only one in the world. There will always be an Asian who does it better than you." Suddenly, a nurse came into the room and told Master Yi that guests had come to see him about the main character and his best partner. It was not possible to hear the entire conversation between the man and the employee, but Young was still able to overhear snippets of phrases. The demon-slaying specialist realized quickly enough how exactly the upcoming conversation would go. It seemed his understudents were really in deep trouble. The younger brother believed that a cultivator of this level was an extremely important find for their family, because they had long been collecting great talents all over the world. But as it turned out, this time the red-haired man did not come for the main character. But what the young man had heard earlier concerned a different issue. He was surprised to see this man here. Their indignation was the same. Shen could not understand what exactly the main character had forgotten here. Master Yi, of course, expected that some kind of fucked up was waiting for him, but for everything to be so neglected, he was surprised that the guys knew each other. When the truth came to the surface, the representative of the Zhao family himself was not very happy about this news. It is still necessary to maintain a high level of reputation. Red came to Master Yi to gain the right to become another disciple of Master Yi. He even had a recommendation issued by the Demon Slayer Alliance. The father advised his son not to rush, probably, even though the guy seems like an enemy now. In the future, he can be used or even turned into an ally. The master himself was extremely surprised to see the letter of recommendation. It's still not so often that an alliance vouches for someone and asks to train him. But, like the main character, the old man has already answered that he is not going to take on new students, so despite having a recommendation, this time he will say the same thing. The man did not want to take an heir because he had a younger brother to whom he introduced Yang Hu. The main character himself did not expect this, but he did not mind. This did not please the member of the Zhao family. He directly said that he did not consider the main character worthy of learning from Master Yi. The guy didn't like this attitude, so he didn't plan to remain silent on the sidelines, collecting all the words that could describe the Zhao family into one sentence. He said it all at once. Then the master turned to the redhead. He put himself above others, considered himself special, but if you take away his money, then besides basic skills, Shen has nothing more. But despite the requests from the former heads of the family, recommendations and anything else, Master Yi did not plan to change his answer. He was not interested in mentoring. Before leaving, the guy warned the master that he would regret not taking the younger brother of the Zhao family as his student. And the main character sat on the mentor's shoulder like a pet and was pleased. The main character believed that he was finally recognized as a disciple, but the old man reminded him of how quickly the representative of the Zhao family left. Now they are in the same position. Even though Shen was worried about his family's reputation, they could hardly be called gray. There have long been many bad rumors about them. After thinking a little, the man suggested that the main character become his younger named brother. His strength should already be at the required level. The young man was happy even at this opportunity, because previously he was under the supervision of a mentor only because of his luck and his acquaintance with Xi Bin. Even after returning to his estate, Zhao Sheng continued to be indignant at Master Yi's decision, because he abandoned their family. The guy himself has high expectations, and he must live up to them so as not to become the laughingstock of their family. Hearing the call, the guy looked up. It seemed that one of the demons sensed his desires and responded to them, calling Shen to another place. The butler was greatly amazed that his master could be transported to another world, or even turned into a vending machine. But in fact, the redhead has moved to the ancient world, and it seems that now in this performance, they have also prepared a special role for him, like the main character. Continuing the training of the main character, Master Yi decided to demonstrate how to actually use spiritual energy. His power could easily shatter a rock, but due to the direction of the energy when attacking, it only cut it in half. The guy and the dog were happy about what a skillful and experienced mentor they got. After all, not every demon hunter is capable of doing something so cool. But along with being awesome, Master Yi also loved to punish Yang Hu for every action he did, trying to teach him discipline. The first step in comprehending a spiritual dream was the ability to use accumulated knowledge and purify consciousness at the right moment. Therefore, while he is training, they will continue to distract the young man so that he gradually gets used to using such techniques directly in battle. The young man was upset that he couldn't show his strength, but Master Yi explained that the guy only does this for 2 to 3 weeks, but usually it takes 5 to 6 years to awaken the sword. To somehow add motivation to the boy, his mentor promised to show him a cool trick if the training in patience and concentration was successful. A few hours later, even when he was next to Xi Bing, the young man imagined that he was a capybara in a hot spring with an orange on his head. The appearance of the girl greatly puzzled the guy, because he didn't even notice when she returned, but the beauty herself was worried about what was so difficult for Young to face. Xi Bing had undergone similar training before, so she decided to give a little hint to the main character to help him move forward. Observing the actions of his friend, Yang Hu was able to draw lines of coincidence and understand that water is life, the first truth in comprehending the sword. He was extremely grateful to the girl for her help and firmly decided to continue training. Now, neither the rain nor the snowstorm, nor even the delicious food nearby could distract him. The degree of concentration of the main character amazed his mentor every time. It's not every day that you meet someone who can control his spiritual power so smoothly. The young man coped with the first stage, so further, as discussed, he will train to wield his own spiritual weapon. However, even after trying again, the main character failed to summon his own blade. It was a truly difficult task. The company behind him further complicated the process of summoning the blade. It seems that it really takes a considerable amount of time. Since the guys were the majority, they voted and threw the main character overboard. He turned out to be a traitor, so the astronauts won. But as soon as the young man stepped out into the corridor, the hospital building in which they had been for a long time began to shake violently. The guy wanted seriousness from the old people, but even in such conditions, they continued to have fun and play mahjong. After some time, the guy entered Master Yi's office. His friend Si Bing was also there. It was important for them to tell something to the main character. The mentor asked to follow him. He had to show something important before they started talking. In the room where the main character was taken by his master, there was a huge screen, more like a simulation or 3D projection. That blow that the guy felt a couple of minutes ago was nothing more than a magical pulsation that comes straight from the depths of Pangu. Between their worlds, there are a large number of crossroads and tunnels that allow energy to move between them. The hospital is one of these centers. In order not to delay, Master Yi decided to explain briefly. With each such vibration, a certain number of monsters from the kingdom of Pangu enter the human world. Although a lot of time has passed, the Alliance of Slayers of Evil did not have time to develop to the required scale to close all such gaps on its own. The point was for the guy to help his mentor patch up this hole, while simultaneously developing his own spiritual energy to the required level. But despite the difficulty of the task, Yang Hu approached it with a huge amount of optimism, preparing to complete it perfectly, regardless of the problems. As the main character knows, Pangu has been consuming the human world for many years, so relics of ancient eras can often be found inside this dimension. The guy thought that it would be just the two of them with Xi Bing, but according to their regulations, all demon slayers who are not busy with tasks and are nearby should come to the rescue. Pug was treated like an ordinary mongrel, but as soon as he spoke, everyone around him recognized him as a magical spirit that wanders with the fighter. The dog had an extremely high position in this hierarchy, although for the main character, he continued to be one of the main problems. The girl met her uncle, who also took part in closing the hole between dimensions, and she asked him about the success of the operation. The man shared that this time everything is happening a little slower, but gradually they are closing this gap in the protection of the human world. Many magicians have made an effort to successfully close the gates that bring only demons and corruption into their world. The wall of enchantment is the only thing that keeps the demons living on the other side from a full-scale invasion of human territory. Carefully following the conversation, the young man realized that the spells protecting the world from the influence of creatures of darkness were once created by other people. Then Zibing decided to tell her friend a little. The story goes that this barrier was erected by the 5 great Kages of all times. It was these spells that made it possible to restrain the power of the demon lord, even if it seems impossible. But once living people accomplished this great feat. This time the breakdown seemed a little unusual. It happened faster than anyone expected, but there was no apparent reason for it. The girl was sent to this place not only to close the hole, but also to conduct an investigation, although her uncle found it funny. Closing such gaps was quite simple. All that was required of a person was to pour in more spiritual strength, which, like a transparent wall, did not allow evil things to come forward. But before the guys finished in one place, a wall was broken in another, and many monsters began to move into the palace territory. Many of the evil slayers present here have never encountered such strong monsters, leveling up and training only on weak lower demons. Shibing was confident in her abilities. The number of animals that appeared in front of them was extremely large, so the girl asked her friend to follow her. Like real pests, small monsters absorb the mana invested in maintaining the barrier. Usually after repair, there is so much of it that it takes years of work. However, this time everything really happened somehow forced, as if these beetles were under someone's command. The main character defended a group of inexperienced killers who were not able to cope with such monsters. The girl immediately warned the main character to stop underestimating monsters just because of their size, because zombies in games individually are also weaklings. The young man used his abilities to the maximum to make clearing the territory of enemies as effective as possible. It seems that the strength of the monsters really lies in their numbers. As Master Yi had bequeathed, in addition to helping, the young man also took care of his own pumping, absorbing the spiritual power of all the defeated monsters in the area. During the time that they have been here, the strength of the protagonist has increased several times. It seems that if everything continues at this pace, he will be able to embody the spiritual spear Chastafol. Suddenly, another beetle wanted to attack the young man from behind. He could even get the boy, but the pug, who appeared in time, once again saved the situation. Those around them could not believe that they were hiding behind the backs of the Kohai, but in a situation where they were in serious danger, they should rely on the strongest. Uncle Sebin thanked the guys because at first he was very worried, but it seems that next to such strong warriors, everything is not so scary. There were about 3 days left before the hole was closed. The girl asked her Nakama to help here and further while she conducted a small investigation. The clouds in Pangu began to thicken. Something was definitely happening, but hardly anyone other than the higher demons understood what exactly. A monster unfamiliar to us was waiting for someone to come to him. He had been in that place for a long time, so his strength was running out. Through a lot of training and constant improvement, the barrier closing efficiency due to Yang Hu's participation had greatly increased. He was currently in the process of closing one of the biggest gaps that had appeared at this point. It looked like once they closed it, things would be a whole lot better. Everything went more than well. There was enough energy to close the otherworldly faults, so it was possible to begin repairing the largest one. The repair was simple in principle, but quite a complex process in execution, requiring an accurate calculation of the amount of spiritual energy. The crack gradually healed, and when it seemed that the end would come right now, the dark side came into play and tried to make it wider. A huge monster that didn't even fit on the screen was attacked from all sides by the protagonist's technique. His strength and reaction speed indicated that he would soon receive rank A. To gain time, the guy used cactus whips to strengthen the dome's defenses. Now it was important to complete the repairs before the dome was damaged. While Yang Hu was holding off the monster's advance, he sensed that someone was planning to do real damage to him from behind. The villain turned out to be Zhao Sheng, who had previously been teleported here by the will of one of the higher demons. Now his strength was much higher. The battle promised to be extremely spectacular, and besides, in the hands of the protagonist's opponent, was an object suspiciously reminiscent of the Philosopher's Stone. Having destroyed it, the younger brother began to absorb a huge amount of energy, and a magic circle of incredible size became visible around the entire palace. The young man continued to make fun of Shen, because he was offended by the world when he was rejected by one master. This made the red-haired man a truly pathetic weakling. But the guy did not intend to give up. He wanted to kill the main character, and then reappear to Master Yi to receive his protection. A huge mutant ant, having escaped from a poorly staffed formicarium, was also against the young man. He had a difficult battle with 2 dangerous monsters. Not immediately noticing, the young man carefully looked at the head of a huge demon. Soon he saw another person unfamiliar to him there. It was a man with armor with red eyes. Along with this incomprehensible man, there was a huge army of the dead with weapons. The young man, unfortunately, did not have seawater to evict the souls from them. There were a huge number of weak warriors around who needed to be protected, while at the same time repelling a huge army and 3 individual demons of the highest rank. Pug took charge of protecting the newcomers. He promised to do everything in the best possible way. Despite his shape, he was a fairly strong dog. The commander took out his spear and pointed it towards the main character. This weapon was filled with spiritual power and carried great danger. But instead of the young man, his girlfriend entered the battle. It seems that she returned in time and was able to choose an opponent suitable in style and strength. Even though the Demon Lord wanted to finish off Yang Hu on his own, it seems that the strong desire coming straight from his rival's sword will not allow him to interfere in someone else's battle. Zhao Sheng became a truly powerful demon. The essence of his spiritual energy changed. It became much darker and more sinister than before. A fan of swords formed behind his back. He summoned 6 or 7 of them in total. This was considered a great skill among demon hunting masters. The redhead soul was very reminiscent of the Pokemon hunter, but unlike him, this creature had much more terrible intentions. Seeing how much stronger one of the members of the Zhao family had become, the young man was truly amazed, because it took him a lot of time to achieve such a power-up. At that moment, while the young man was amazed, the appearance of his opponent changed significantly. Now the younger brother looked like Asura. He had 4 arms. The main character could not fight such a monster on equal terms at this moment in time, but he also was not able to leave people to die. Then the young man again sat in a prayer position and called out to the Buddha. The divine silhouette soon appeared behind him, his arms and body forming smoothly. The ensuing battle between good and evil foreshadowed enormous destruction, yet almost equal opponents met in battle. Zhao Sheng was sure that no one could compare with him, because he is the coolest, strongest, and most skilled. He will definitely cope and become the ruler of the world. On the other side stood the god of joy, the one who punishes beings of non-believers for their actions against humanity. The Buddha's anger continued to grow. Like Sasuke and Naruto after the end of the Great Shinobi War, the two fought in huge shells, trying to deal an increasingly devastating blow. At this point in the fight, the advantage was definitely on Shen's side, and he decided to summon swords to use as weapons rather than fight with his fists. A precise blow to the chest shook the god's silhouette, causing him enough serious damage that the summoned image could easily disappear. But Yang Hu was not used to giving up without a fight, so even though his forces were on the border, he did not stop fighting. Using his martial arts experience, the Buddha threw the demon over his shoulder. He planned to follow up with an armbar. However, the next attack of the God of Joy was blocked by a dark barrier. The chances of winning were 50-50, so all that remained for the main character was to give it his all. Having summoned a shield, the dark demon was ready to continue the fight on an even greater scale. Zhao was confident that he would emerge victorious from the battle. But the boy forgot about Yang Hu's other advanced techniques, which he uses on an ongoing basis, and does not forget when learning a new skill. The bonds quickly fell under the onslaught of a strong opponent, but they did their job, buying a little time to prepare a more serious attack. Even so, the dark demon was able to attack first, completely piercing the huge being of light and spiritual energy. Before the creatures of light and darkness could finish their battle, a demon of incredible size intervened in the process. The same ant kept trying to get inside. The battle between Si Bing and the commander also continued. The girl planned to concede, using all her knowledge gained over the years of training under the mentorship of Master Yi. Zhao felt a significant advantage and wanted to end the battle quickly, because then he could move on to further tasks. Meanwhile, an old man was watching what was happening outside. The situation was gradually getting out of control. It would be simply impossible to contain such an influx of aura without consequences. The earth was being destroyed so much that it was as if two earthshakers had met in one skating rink at once. But the man did not plan to retreat. As a guardian, he was going to fulfill his role to the end. The master collected an electric aura around himself. He gradually twisted and condensed it to make something grandiose. But unexpectedly, Yi was approached by the same man who had previously given the order to the guy with the mohawk to take the eyes of the main character. Next, we are transported back to Yang Hu and Zhao Sheng. Their battle continues just as intensely. The main character begins to lose his position a little. Using a huge sword of lightning, the redhead wanted to put an end to their duel, showing who was really the strongest here. The only chance for the main character to win this battle was to awaken his own sword and use it to fight on equal terms. Even though this was indeed the last opportunity, the young man did not know how exactly to move to this stage, because no matter how much he tried, he could not summon a weapon. The dog tried to intervene in the fight to save his friend, but he was thrown aside with just one light blow. But seeing the suffering of his neighbor and knowing real pain, the young man not only awakened the Chokotomoya Sharingan, but also began to release the blade. The sacred power was so dazzling that it eclipsed everyone in the area. Even Zhao himself could not do anything against this outbreak. All the previously used plants began to form one huge sphere. A tangle of many vines and lashes gradually took on a threatening shape. But just waiting for the moment when Shen was destroying him was not going to. Using swords, he sent them forward, trying to chop the fruits of the protagonist's labors. He was even ready to deliver the final blow using his spiritual weapon. The guy swung towards Yang Hu, and at that moment, the young man had a vision of someone else's internal energy circulation system. He clearly saw all the points at which the power of his enemy accumulated and how it moved. During the battle, the main character finally understood what Seben and his master were talking about. The heart is water, its stopping and movement is life. Then the water itself is at the same time an aura. Having realized this truth, the guy was able to understand what he needed to materialize the sword. Now he was ready to inflict a crushing defeat on Zhao Sheng. Everyone around, including the girl and her opponent, the people below, some of the demons, as well as the redhead himself, understood that a real miracle was about to happen. The blade of light cut Baron Rivendare's shield in half, reaching the very center, the base, where Zhao Sheng's real body was located. The strength of the main character after awakening the spiritual weapon increased several times. Now the situation was gradually developing in his favor. The Vedic demon Asura was defeated. Buddha's foot stood on his chest, and the young man was ready to complete this battle, marking the victory of the alliance over the forces of darkness. Having gained the upper hand over his opponent, the young man switched to the giant demon, as well as many soldiers who attacked other hunters. Many small monsters wanted to kill the main character, because his power went beyond even the most ancient monsters of this dimension. Hundreds of solar blades struck down one monster after another, allowing Yang Hu's allies to regain their strength while the enemy's main army concentrated on him. The commander was sure that this was simply impossible, because the Buddha's power was too great. He was able to defeat even Zhao Sheng, the trump card of their attack. The skill that the guy mastered was a unique skill of their master. Even though the main character himself had just learned to summon a sword, he already perfectly controls the flow of spiritual forces. To help Xibing, the golden statue dealt a serious blow from above while her friend planned to strike from the side, leaving no room for the undead to maneuver. However, this ancient warrior had another ace up his sleeve. He summoned Susanoo, a huge golem, who stopped Yang Hu's blow. A huge number of attacks by the protagonist and his girlfriend restrained the golem, but could not knock him down completely. He continued to protect the commander. But having found a weak spot in the defense, the boy was still able to pierce him with his blade of light and put him to rest forever in another world. To save his master from this situation, the demonic wolf jumped into the thick of it, hoping to save the undead and escape. All remaining demons began to retreat through the remaining holes in the barrier, likely planning to regroup and continue their advance. The magic emanating from another world greatly distorted the real world, and spatial distortions were observed around the hospital. The evil grandfather could not believe that the spell was broken, because their plan was ideal, and they should have emerged victorious from the battle. When leaving, the spirit promised to return again and take revenge. And Master Yi, meanwhile, anticipated what problems they would have to sort out if Pangu became even less stable.